I can't do this. I don't have what it takes. This is way out of my league. Let somebody else do it. What will my parents say? What will my friends say? What will that person down the street say? If you have thought of any of these statements even once in your life, you are a victim of crippling fear. Hey guys, I'm Rhoda and welcome back to my channel. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please subscribe by clicking on the link down below. I make videos every single week and today I'll be talking about a very common topic, and that is fear. Fear in its purest form is actually good. As one woman mountaineer said in an interview, if you are looking at the tallest peak in the world that you are about to climb and you don't feel fear, there's something really wrong with you. But if that fear stops you from climbing that mountain, that fear is bad. So today I want to talk about fear because, as you all know, fear has a massive say on what we do and what we do not do. As I sat down to think about fear and all the fears that we might have and all the fears that we may think of, I realized that all our fears are interconnected, and all the things that stop us from living our best life and stop us from taking risks fall into three major categories. And today I want to talk about each one of these categories and hopefully give you an idea of how to overcome this fear. Fear number one, what if I fail? Nobody likes failure. Failure, whether public or private, whether big or small, ends up battering our self-esteem and makes us question what we are doing in the first place. Failure will always make us feel bad, but we need to realize that we cannot get swept up in the emotion of failure, and for that we need a clear mind. Whenever we fail, our emotions take over, and instead of sitting and clearly seeing what we can learn from that failure, we blindly decide that this was not for us. But what can really help us in failure is having a clear mind as to what went wrong, why it went wrong, and how we can do better next time. For that, we need to separate the external factors of our failure and the internal factors. There are some things in life that we cannot control. We cannot control the weather, we cannot control the wind, we cannot control the stock market, we cannot control circumstances and people. So whenever our failure is related to anything that we cannot control, we should realize that it might not be our fault in any way, and we need to forget about those failures. If the failure was caused by factors that we could have controlled, something that was within our grasp, something that was related to our skill, or something that we could have done differently, we need to realize what that was and ensure that in the future we change that to ensure that we are successful. I find that it is easier to focus on what we can learn from the failure rather than on the failure itself. The sooner we start learning from our mistakes or learning from our failures, the sooner we can pick ourselves up and move forward. Another way of not getting disappointed by failure is changing the way we think of failure itself. Oftentimes we believe that we have failed if life doesn't turn out the way we think it should have. We have certain plans for our life, and if that does not happen, we think we have failed. But we need to realize that life always doesn't go according to our plans. Life is life. It can change anytime. It evolves over time. It evolves with the years. And we need to understand that there are different phases in life. There is a time for everything. And if life doesn't pan out the way we want it to pan out, it doesn't mean we have failed. As long as we are moving forward, as long as we are growing, as long as we are moving in a direction that is positive, we are not failing. I have found that this mindset of not expecting everything to go my way has reduced my disappointment and reduced my sense of failure. Because if I look at my life right now and look back at my life, I can see many times in which I would technically have failed because I didn't get into the college I wanted to get in. I'm not even working in the job I wanted to work in. I am not living in the city I wanted to live in. And so from another person's point of view, I probably am a failure, I'm a big failure, but I don't see it as that, because all the things that didn't turn out to what I had planned them to actually made my life better. The place I'm at, the work that I do right now, the college I got into, everything was better than I had expected it to be. That really helped me realize that I am not a failure. I didn't fail at these things. That's just life. And changing your mindset of what you see as failure is very important. And that makes life easier to live. Now, fear number 2 is a very common fear, and that is, what will people say? We as humans, quite understandably, put a lot of value into what other people say about us. Because we're very social beings, because we always look for connections, whatever other people say about us oftentimes hits our weakest spots, and then we change our mind about doing things. We change our mind about anything that we had set our mind to do just because we worry about what will people say. But hear me out on this one. Regardless of what you do, whether sane or insane, whether conservative or modern, people will always say something. People will always have an opinion about it, and that's just the way it is. So unless you want to isolate yourself and live like a hermit on some mountain, which I oftentimes think I should do, we cannot escape people's opinions about us and the way we live our lives. So what I personally follow, which I found really useful, is the in one ear and out the other policy. So what that is whenever someone says anything about me, whether to my face or behind my back, I first take what they said and see whether it is constructive or not. If it is, I internalize it and actually see what I can do better. If it isn't, I throw it out of my mind. This is not something that is very easy to do. It's easier said than done. I understand that. But it does take a lot of practice, but it can be done. It's just like a habit. If you keep repeating it, if you decide that I don't want to take in negative things in my life and constantly practice that, it becomes easier with time. You can definitely get to a place where nothing will faze you, that you can hear anything and everything negative about you and not care. You can definitely reach that place. Obviously, it's a lot harder when someone you love gives their opinion and it's a negative opinion, because you place a lot of value on what they say. But it is definitely possible to not emotionally react to what someone has said, because if you keep practicing the in one ear and out the other, it becomes easier with time. In the beginning, I had to literally tell myself, oftentimes loudly, that Rhoda, you need to not think about this. And I had to distract myself and do something more productive in order to remove any negativity from my mind, because as humans and as people, we constantly think, and especially the negative things keep running through our mind until we can't stop them and we lose sleep over them. The more I did this, the more I forced myself to stop, the more I distracted myself, the easier it became. And now it's second nature. Another policy that I also use is, if it doesn't matter in 5 years' time, it shouldn't matter now. And most of the times what people think about us, their opinions will not definitely matter in 5 years' time, and it should not matter now. What truly matters is why you're doing what you're doing, whether you have a sense of purpose with what you're doing, whether you have a conviction with what you're doing. As long as you have that, it doesn't really matter what people think, because most of the time, whenever something's different from what people would do themselves, they will say something, because that's what people do. And we cannot avoid that, but we can just ignore that and keep moving forward. The third fear that I want to talk about is, what if I have to sacrifice too much? We often worry about the sacrifices that we have to make in order to pursue what we want to pursue. We worry about the inconveniences we might cause to ourselves or our families, the harm we might cause, the shame we might bring on them. And because of that, we stop ourselves from doing what we truly want to do, because we fear the sacrifice. Obviously, it is important to weigh the pros and cons of whatever it is you're trying to do, whatever risk you're trying to take. But if you are pretty sure of what you want to do, then the sacrifice should not really matter, because inconveniences and sacrifice are a part of success. You can ask the entrepreneur who slaves away for a decade to get his business going. You can ask the scientists who were called mad for their innovations and inventions, which we actually use very frequently today. You can ask the Indian freedom fighters who gave up their lives fighting for the freedom we enjoy today. All of these people sacrificed. When something is bigger than fear, when some dream is bigger than fear, courage takes its place, and no sacrifice is big enough. If people let fear govern their lives, no great thing would have happened in the world today, because everything takes sacrifice. You need to see whether what you want to do is worth it. And if it is, fear can be suppressed. Fear obviously will always be there, because as I said in the beginning of the video, if you are standing at the bottom of the highest mountain peak that you are going to climb, and if you don't feel fear, there's something wrong with you. But if reaching that peak is worth it, you will climb through that fear and get there. All of us are victims of fear in one way or the other, and I do not even know what particular fear that you are facing today. There are so many fears in the world, and most of them that I know of fall into these three categories. But what I believe and why I made this video was because I want each and every one of us to become conquerors of fear. Because without conquering our fears, we cannot really move forward. Because whether we know it or not, fear often holds us back from doing things. So I hope this video was helpful, firstly in identifying what you fear the most, and secondly in helping you conquer those fears, because it's all in the mind. It's all in the mind, and if you can conquer your mind, you can conquer fear and you can conquer the world. And that is what I really hope you do. Please like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you next week.